Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. We are back down here in the raid farm. We're not going to be doing any more work on the farm itself today because this thing has been performing flawlessly. I'm so happy with it. We have a whole bunch of loot in the chest here now. We have even more stuff hanging out up here. In fact, I can probably take a couple of those emeralds and condense them down into this chest, maybe get some of these axes and combine them. I have a little bit more Hero of the Village left, but I think today we are actually going to do some on-camera work to clear up some caves around this farm, because as I have mentioned, the pillager spawn rate from the outpost up here is kind of low because of the other hostile mobs who are in the area. And so what I think we need to do is spend a significant amount of time finding and lighting up caves within the vicinity of this farm, which is going to be a bit of a tedious job, and I thought I would go over how to do that in a survival mode context when you don't have access to something like a camera account and spectator mode. Because typically, for the purposes of doing stuff quickly in this video, I might go down there with spectator mode to find the caves and then light them up and then come back up to the surface to continue the video, just because it saves me a little bit of time and it means I can continue making videos for you guys. But obviously some people consider that cheating. Some people may not even have access to that stuff if they're on a multiplayer server that doesn't allow spectator accounts. Some folks might also not have cheats enabled in their world, so they're not able to access commands and go down into the earth with spectator mode. I think it's probably a good idea to cover a few techniques that I have learned for figuring out where caves are and how to get rid of them. So we're going to do some of that in the form of a replay mod time-lapse, just so you can see exactly how I am discovering each of the caves underground, but it's not going to be done using spectator mode. I'm going to do the entire thing in survival. And I've got a live stream coming up today, which is yesterday at the time this video is actually going out. But if you want to go back to twitch.tv/pixlriffs and watch the VOD, you will see how I approached it in real time. But I think a replay mod time-lapse is going to be a good way to do this. I'll try and provide commentary where I can, but yeah, let's go and find some caves. Okay, so here we go with our freeform caving advice. The first, of course, being find any caves that you can spot from the surface. Right here, of course, I have this flat area that I carved out of the mountainside, which has some easy to spot caves in it, the kind of stuff that's generated just below ground level, but really doesn't have all that much depth to it, so it's nice and easy to light up. You can usually spot a couple of mobs crawling out of the surface caves here and then burning in the daylight during the day, but of course they're going to thrive at night, so probably best to keep these areas lit up and taken care of. You'll find the majority of these tend to be quite shallow though. They don't end up going down into the earth from this sort of elevation unless you get super lucky, so you'll mostly just find a couple of mobs knocking around in here and a smallish area that you can just light up easily with a couple of torches. Areas like this round room are actually kind of common in cave generation, and you'll find that they tend to spawn a little bit closer to the surface. You won't find too many of them once you get further down into the earth. Of course, part of the problem here is that we have a large area of land on the surface that can potentially spawn mobs. It's still within the spawnable range of the farm, not for pillagers, but for other overworld hostile mobs. So at some point, if we wanted to be super efficient with it, we could light up that whole land mass with torches. For now, though, I've decided not to bother and mainly to focus on the stuff that I can't see underground, which is actually quite easy to get a good view of from the air if you want to locate some features like underwater ravines, for example, which I have a plentiful supply of around here and can actually provide some interesting entrances into cave systems. This one didn't seem like it had a whole bunch, but then when I swam back through it in this direction, I noticed a cave entrance off to the right, and we were pretty much off to the races at that point. This was an expansive cave system that even led into actual generated features like an abandoned mine shaft you can briefly see there on the left. And while I was exploring this whole thing, I came upon a network of tunnels that I could use as a base of operations to connect me to as many caves as possible within the area. Regardless of that, you're inevitably going to miss some caves on this first pass. You don't want to do it super systematically, except when it comes to exploring the abandoned mine shaft. You kind of want to just work through a cave the way you normally would if you were looking for resources. You've just got to light the whole thing up as you go. But really, it's about finding the spots where the caves are. And as you can see here, this is going to be a quick time lapse of me lighting up as much as I can of an abandoned mineshaft, but chances are there are still some offshoots of the mineshaft that are going to be buried behind certain walls. So at this point, it's important to point out a couple of useful tools in your arsenal here. The first being, on Java Edition at least, subtitles. Subtitles are really useful for spotting when sounds are occurring behind walls near to you that you haven't even noticed because you have the music turned up, the sounds turned down, you don't want to hear all of those spider noises behind you in the caves. I really recommend turning subtitles on. It will tell you not only when there are bat noises or mob noises indicating a cave nearby, but it will also tell you which direction they're coming from, which is super, super helpful. Of course, mineshafts are quite expansive, and I did miss a sizable chunk of this. Some of it might not even be within the radius of the pillager outpost, within 128 blocks of where we're standing with the raid farms, so it might not even matter all that much, but I should probably come back and deal with some more of that. At this point, I came back to check on the raid farm, and it really hadn't changed the rates all that much. Pillagers were still spawning occasionally, but I would come down here and sit by the bottom of the farm for a couple of minutes, and only a couple of pillagers spawned in that time, so it still wasn't quite the ideal rates for me, and so I decided we need to go a little bit further with our approach. The next thing to do, of course, was to do this systematically, to basically create a tunnel out 128 blocks in 4 of the cardinal directions and find caves, and luckily I was able to stumble across this ravine pretty quickly. A ravine is more or less the worst case scenario when you're looking for caves to light up when spawn proofing an area, because ravines have like these multiple layers to them. There are these little alcoves and cavities in the wall around the top there. On the right hand side you can see a couple of them, and those will all need lighting up to make sure that nothing can spawn in those 2-block high spaces. You'll also find that while you're working on these ravines, creepers will jump down from those and attempt to explode in your face. Not the best experience, but you need to deal with them anyway, so you might as well. In fact, there are ravines basically in every cardinal direction from the raid farm here. I actually have a ravine to the north, south, east, and west of me when I'm standing in that little area, so I do need to make sure as much of that is lit up as possible. You'll also notice from this view that there are a bunch of flooded caves in the area because it's below an ocean, and those are absolutely fine. You might get the drowned spawning them in occasionally, but it's really not all that significant. You can probably leave those well enough alone. Chuck a couple of sea lanterns or other waterproof light sources in there if you want to, but I was just using them as a means of getting to anything else that was a little bit further away. So I went out 128 blocks in each direction and tried to light up the areas that I could find, and of course if I wanted to go a little bit more meticulous with this, I could still find a bunch of the other caves by digging around a little bit further, creating a systematic grid as though I was branch mining, or even just turning the subtitles on and listening to a few of the sounds. But as it was, with these 4 ravines lit up and a good portion of the abandoned mineshaft as well, I was fairly confident that that would have affected the hostile mob spawns in the local area enough that it might increase the output of the pillagers from the pillager outpost section of the raid farm. I gave it a trial run, and I gotta say I'm quite pleased with the results. It's not too fast, not too slow. The pillagers don't seem to interrupt the waves of the raid too frequently. Maybe we had 1 or 2 more spawns than we wanted to, but I think I can come up with a couple of neat ways of fixing that. Hey folks, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the time-lapse, and now we actually have a considerable amount of spawns down here, which is quite good news. This is actually at the point where I'm considering maybe putting in some countermeasures to prevent the pillagers from spawning up there while a raid is happening, which is actually going to be fairly straightforward for us to do. There we go, that was a pillager who I think spawned on the platform for the raid mobs, but yeah, don't worry too much about that. That's not a big problem. They'll all just end up down here anyway. But right now, there's a bit of a lull. We don't have any pillagers spawning in, but chances are, if we just AFK around here for a little while, we should get some captains spawning with banners. And the one thing I would like to cap off today's video with is potentially spawning in a raid with a higher level of bad omen by spawning in a few pillager captains, waiting for them to drop down here with those banners over their heads. Unfortunately, this guy does not look like he has a banner, so we might have to wait a little bit longer for that. But yeah, as you can see, spawn rates aren't through the roof or anything. We're not getting like 50 pillagers a minute or anything like that, but it does seem like everything is improved a little bit. We are getting these guys sort of regularly. And in the raid that you saw at the end of that time lapse, I actually got a couple of pillagers spawning here which were preventing a wave of the raid from moving on, hence the need for a couple of countermeasures up there on the surface. And you know what, if you think it through, those are going to be simple enough, right? All we should need to do is to disrupt the spawning area here in some way, and that can be pretty easily achieved by, for example, a couple of dispensers with water at the corners here. The water would flood out a substantial area of the platform. It wouldn't block pillager spawns entirely on the other areas of the platform, but it would reduce the spawnable space in here, making sure that the pillagers would not be able to spawn with such great frequency. We could enable and disable that with a couple of little redstone circuits around here, and that could allow for the raid platform here to take precedence while a raid was happening, and then you could simply disable the dispensers again and allow the pillagers to spawn freely once the raid was over. Not only that, but having dispensers with water might also be an effective way of flushing out this platform in case any pillagers happen to get stuck up here, although that doesn't seem to be a problem in my estimation. It seems like they are all fine getting onto those trapdoors and falling down into the pit to begin with. I'm pretty sure we have at least one banner wearing captain down here. Fantastic stuff. We do. These two are, I guess, locked in a bit of a standoff here. So I'm going to AFK here for a little while longer, and we're going to see what happens if we can take on a raid with a higher level of bad omen. And while we're at it, I kind of want to benchmark exactly what we can get from this farm with a single run through of a top level raid. So like anything above bad omen 1 is going to get you an extra wave of the raid that will happen at the very end, and I want to see how much loot we can get from that. So I'm going to go through, empty out all of the stuff that I've got in here, combine a bunch of these crossbows. I might even install a grindstone down here or something like that to make sure that we can get ourselves a nice easy workflow of combining these crossbows. But once I've combined all of these crossbows, I'm going to tuck them away in this shulker box that I've got here that I actually had out in the desert where I was curing some more pillagers, getting a few more friendly pillagers that I can bring over to Founder's Forge. And once I'm done combining all of this stuff, we're going to see what happens and how much loot we can get from a higher tier Bad Omen raid. Okay folks, we have two captains here, and I'm actually probably going to call it there because I have learned on the Minecraft wiki at least that outposts will typically only spawn between 1 and 3 captains, so I think once we have 2 captains present here, it's not actually going to spawn anymore, or if we had 3 captains, that would be the absolute maximum. So I think this is as good a time as any to start our raid, and hopefully we should now have Bad Omen 2 scale raid. Now, as you can see, immediately we have another pillager coming down into here, which means that the spawn rates are a little high, but now the raid bar is charging up, and we hopefully shouldn't see the pillagers interrupting that too much. See, another one has spawned while that raid wave was charging up. So this is what I'm talking about. This is potentially why we need to limit the amount of spawns we have up here once a raid starts, because I don't necessarily want all of these guys coming down here while I'm trying to charge up a raid. But these chests are now completely empty. I have a couple of crossbows in here. I couldn't help it. It was just a bunch of regular pillagers standing around that I decided to take out individually with a bow and arrow, but it should be a good benchmark of exactly how many items we can get out of this raid farm at full capacity. So there we go, that's our first wave taken care of. We might see another pillager or two dropping down while the second wave is on its way, but hopefully this should be plain sailing from here. Okay, we've managed to get 2 waves in a row with no interruptions. It is also nighttime right now. As far as I can tell, it looks a little bit dark around the entrance to this drop, and that typically means that mobs will be spawning around the islands nearby, so potentially that is preventing pillagers from spawning too frequently on that platform. Should just be able to take out a couple of these. Note we have one more raider remaining who seems to be at full health, so I wonder if that's another guy who still needs to fall down here, or if he's going to be falling down on this side. I need to keep an eye on this platform, but no, maybe he'll be coming down here. Oh, no, it's a Ravager, of course, 3rd wave. There you go. I was wondering why the health bar was looking so full. And the Ravager is just now burning up in the lava, so that's perfect. Okay, dealt with. Wave 4. We got 1 pillager joining this wave of the raid, but I think that should be nice and easy to take care of. We got 1 more Evoker, there we go, last guy came through, and ignore these health potions, by the way, those were already in the chest. I didn't have room for them in the shulker box there, but those have not come from this raid. Oh, okay, we have an interruption. We have 1 pillager, 2 pillagers now should have spawned on this side, and it should be nice and quick for them to come down here. They will be tracking towards the village center. That's 3 pillagers spawning during this wave. It seems to be daylight outside now. You can see the entrance there is looking a little bit lighter, so yeah, potentially this is prime pillager spawning time, and that's going to present a little bit of a problem for interrupting these waves of the raid, but this should be wave number 6 or 7. It should be quite a late one at this point. And this should be the last wave of the raid. We haven't had too many spawns from the pillagers up on that platform, which I'm perfectly fine with. I feel like we could have done a lot more work to light up some of the other caves. Just looking at it in the replay footage, which I guess unfortunately I did get a look at the surrounding world in spectator mode, we did see quite a few caves there that I didn't even find. Some stuff in the abandoned mine shaft as well that I never encountered while I was exploring that. So chances are there is a lot more we could do to make this farm more efficient, but of course we're never going to be making it 100% efficient because we have this entire perimeter of water to contend with, and the fact that that can potentially spawn the drowned. So we shouldn't need to worry too much about the efficiency of the farm. It seems like the Ravagers are burning up there, lovely, and we might end up with a couple of pillagers spawning here and there, but it's not going to be anything we can't handle at this stage. Well, there do appear to be a couple of pillagers spawning here and slowing down this last raid, but there is one mob left on the surface, it seems like. I have not seen them fall down here, and I think by the look of things, that might be a Ravager. I wonder if that's got through to some place it shouldn't have. Let's go up here and find out. Ooh, okay, I don't want to fall down there. Okay, so that Ravager is just taking its sweet time getting up there into the lava. I might need to put lava source blocks all the way along the top there, you know, because I think there might be a couple of places it just doesn't want to climb up and get stuck into the thicker parts of the lava, but it really shouldn't take all that long for it to diminish. In the meantime, though, we are getting a couple of pillager mob spawns around here. Yep, there we go. Okay, the Ravager is finally burning up. Maybe it saw me over the glass or something. Who knows? But it does look like that is going to be the last of it, with the exception of 2 friends down here. There we go. Oh, and again, this raid is actually not ending because we have a couple of spawns on the platform up there. Probably because I spent a little bit of time up there, which cleared out some mobs nearer the bottom of the world or on the periphery outside here. Oh well, as long as one more pillager can drop down here, we can end this raid. There we go. It's you, and victory. That's it. Okay, so that ultimately wasn't too bad. That Ravager was taking a little bit of time, and we got a few pillager spawns in the meantime, but I think this is pretty good. We've actually been able to spawn a few pillager captains. We've been able to take care of the raid without any kind of worries about the delays to the raid or anything like that. So I think that's actually pretty good, and let's take a look at our haul. Wow, okay, we have more than a stack of emeralds. That's a great start. We have all of these totems of undying, thanks to all of the evokers that spawn in those later waves. That is 8 totems of undying. Pretty darn good, if you ask me. Of course, we have a bunch of the other junk, like saddles, which I can throw out because I have so many saddles at this point. 8 ominous banners, some witch drops as well. We have one pillager who decided he was a raid mob there. And I think that's really not bad. This down here is, of course, the stuff that you really want this farm for. A couple of witch drops as well. Doesn't go too far amiss if you don't have a witch farm. But ultimately, I think this is now pretty decently optimized, and I feel like we can work with it for the next little while. So that is going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide and for Raid Week, which once again kind of turned into 2 weeks worth of raid-related stuff. But I hope you enjoyed today's look at lighting up caves in the surrounding area and how to find those if you don't want to do the cheaty thing of finding them using spectator mode or anything like that. So that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.